Why do you choose graphic novel as a form of storytelling?
I mean, why not? Because there's text, there's image. It has extremely high expressive quality. It has depth. Um, if you compare it to other mediums, it has its own advantages. It has its disadvantages. The disadvantages can also become advantages. Like you can't have sound in comics. You have to. There's brevity, meaning like you have to say whatever you have to say clearly, and you cannot like spend too much time. You have to sort of be precise. Even if you're saying talking about some vague philosophical thing, your writing has to be precise. And not just people who write comic books or graphic novels, but even people who read graphic novels have to. It is not a passive reading because it's like watching YouTube. I mean, it's like your own understanding of the world kind of comes out. It's not like as opposed to Netflix, which is like somebody else decides what you have the power to kind of decide how you're going to read it, to what depth you understand. So it has many layers in graphic novel. It's more interesting than cinema for me because in cinema the director decides how long you are allowed to watch what. And in comics, there's always the possibility of going back and forth. So if you put in a lot of complexities at the early stage, people can go back and refer back to it. Um, it is in novels also you can do it, but then I find the visual narrative more interesting because it kind of creates a sense of you need less words to describe the atmosphere because you can just draw it. And also there's readability in drawings, so it's not just the text that you read, you also read the image. And when you read the image, a lot of your own understanding of visual culture comes through. So I think it's a combination of all these things that drew me into graphic novels. And also it's a compositional art. You're composing a graphic novel. It is more like it's closer to music or song than to like either cinema or novels, because you can do you can have very good writing and very good drawings, but you can still write a very bad comics. On the other hand, you can also have like very basic writing and very basic drawing, but together it creates like a fantastic reading material. So how it works.
Must you try to achieve an accurate image while you are writing, especially if you're writing about like a different period or a different place which you haven't experienced yourself?
Yeah, accurate is an interesting word. What is accurate? Is it accurate in terms of information? If it's accurate in terms of information, photography is perhaps even a better medium, or video is a better medium. If it's accurate from a more like mental space, like an abstract mental association or memory, or what we call in comics tonality or atmosphere, I feel like comics is better suited to kind of create those tonality and atmosphere. So for example, if you're feeling low, or if you're having this feeling that it's one of those evenings where you feel that something's going to happen but nothing's going to happen, these kind of vague emotional states and mental health states, etc., if you have to accurately depict it, sometimes comics is actually better because again, comics works at a psychological level. uh, it is a psychological theater that you are trying to create. And sometimes psychological theater means that you're not using the images which are directly linked to the situation, but it evokes the feeling. So part of the joy of doing comics is that there is an abstraction which you're trying to achieve through text and image. So accuracy is a in comics becomes a subjective thing. So you might not be accurately depicting the city or the place, or your ambassador does not look like an ambassador, but the feeling that you're generating is accurate. So one of the interesting things about comics is what you write. As I'm getting older, I'm realizing what you intend to say, you almost never say it, because your writing is not about what you're writing in the comics, but you're writing about something else. So you're showing, say, for example, uh, uh, landing of moon, Chandra and landing of moon, and that's what you're showing. but actually you end up basically talking about how all your life you've been the second best, or you always sort of never really managed to kind of win or whatever. So comics has this ability to kind of make amazing metaphors of real life, which is why comic book readership, as you mentioned, that you find comic book interesting, is because I suppose you have those sort of visual clues in your mind. You have an active mind, and somewhere you're collaborating with the writer. So if you're reading my book, it's not you're just reading with me, you're also collaborating with me to get to a meaning. Are you getting it? Meaning, it's not you're passively, I've told you what to imagine, but you yourself are doing all the imagination. And that's why I think some people find comic books more interesting than, say, watching movie or stuff like that.
You do talk about politics, you do talk about the casteism, you have talked about that kind of. Do you want to take forward a political narrative with your stories as well? Like, is there a fixed idea that you're consciously trying to make a point with it being political or rather philosophical, or does it just happen?
Yeah, you see, bit like humor also. You don't really look to kind of make people laugh. So to answer your question about politics, that no, I'm like real straight up politics of whether it's politics of identity, politics of gender, national politics, communal politics, whatever. I have my sensibilities, of course, but the comics does not directly talk about the politics, and also my comics is not activism or any kind of pushing a political agenda forward. However, I am interested in how human beings are affected by politics, how people get either it is like a charisma of a leader, how people start following, how followers develop, how dedicated fans become, how people all conservatism within people, like deep-seated prejudices of caste, class, religion, how they balance it in their own life, and how they kind of think they that is more important for me than like sort of indirect or political sort of so with politics I'm more interested in how people react to that politics, or with how they agree or disagree to that politics. So political I've stayed away from political reportage partly because I don't think I'm a political cartoonist or a political comic book writer, because there are people like that who does it. I feel that if I do that, I already kind of sort of directly take sides, and much of the poetry and for me the poetry and the lyrics of comics is lost when I'm trying to, like you said, going towards an agenda. If there's an agenda, so there's no agenda per se in my comics, because I don't really know when I start and where it's going to end, and whatever else is happening is my own consciousness. So if the person is political, if the consciousness is political, then I feel that you don't have to overtly get into politics of sides of identity and things like this. But the politics is, it's a bit like humor also. You're not trying to make people happy, but if it's or funny or trying to make people feel like sort of laugh, but somewhere it kind of it comes out like an accent, like if you have a strong Bengali accent, it comes out no matter what you speak. So similarly, humor also comes out. So there's nothing self-consciously like funny that I'm going to write a very funny piece, and that I think is a very it's quite important for me to kind of also political comics. A lot of people write comics. This only kind of attracts usually a converted group of people. Whoever adheres to that politics, they would read it and enjoy it, and whoever is against that politics will rubbish it or discard it. And I'm not interested in people who are already believe in what I'm saying, but I'm more interested in people who are like sort of who haven't really decided their mind, who are like kind of confused or whatever. That's the lot. So whenever I'm writing anything political, those are the people I'm thinking of, not really people who are like my gang or that sort of stuff.
So you like do have like you the target audience is of a certain ideology, I think. Is that
See, Arav, when you're younger, you have this sort of idea of target audience, right? But then as you get like sort of, as you get older and a little bit more, I guess, self-assured and more confident, I guess, the idea of the target audience does not really exist anymore. You can only write what you can write. You can only be as deep as you are yourself. You can only, because anything else is false. And one of the things that I would like to sort of tell my students or encourage them is try to be honest. If even if it's not glorious, if it's not graceful, if it's awkward, if it is honest, and that honesty shows in the narrative. You cannot write more cleverly than you are, and you can't be more dumb than you are, because either ways you will reveal yourself. So the concept of target audience is sort of as I've grown older, it has vanished. Maybe you have a few friends in mind who you kind of extrapolated that this person would like this or this person would not like this, but the whole idea of a target audience is not there. And it's a bit, I find it a bit dangerous also for this whole idea of the target audience, because what has happened with the onset of social media, especially Instagram and what's the other thing, TikTok, and what has happened is like people who are producers or cultural creators, or maybe comic book writers or painters or whatever, they put on some post and then suddenly a large number of people like it, and then they put on another post that not that many people like it. So it's a human impulse that you move towards, like, you slowly your writing changes and seems to like sort of adhere to the something that you posted and you got 600 likes, as opposed to something that you posted which has got 100 likes. And this is I find it problematic, because then you start like playing up to the gallery, playing up to your fans. You become the Babaji complex. What do you say? You want to become a Babaji. And then I feel like you limit yourself, because you fit into, and that doesn't only happen in social media, it also happens in the art world, that some artwork that you've started, it makes you famous. If, for example, you put together utensils and sewn them together and made into a sculpture, and seemingly everybody likes it, you push yourself, or the gallery pushes you to kind of continue doing that same work, which is pleasing to people and which is easily sellable. But that same artist might have many other sides to them. They might be like wanting to do video, they might want to do like small drawings which are not as popular. So I feel there's a danger of like this sort of target audience business, because then because everybody else is optimizing themselves to kind of get to the target piece. Like, for example, advertising, design, people who do design, they have this, their job is to optimize things, make it more and more efficient. And efficiency and optimization are two things I'm against, or like not fully against, but I feel like that kind of makes our life more unidimensional. And to me, it also stops exploration, new forms being found. So we have to constantly, I feel, I personally, to make it more interesting for myself, I have to push a little bit of like my own boundaries to different things which are not safe. And when you become too much target oriented, this thing oriented, then you like want to play safe and you want to be popular. And I think it's very important at an early stage in life to free yourself or emancipate yourself to become like a popular, to become a guru. And I think that's important, because comics is a modest discipline. We are never going to be even as famous like a B level TV star. So fame is not an important. There's no money really of any consequence. So why are we doing it? We're doing it for our own self or our own mental health, or to kind of just live life. So this does not come very quickly. This realization, it didn't come when I was in my 20s, because like everybody else, I wanted to be like famous, well known, wherever. But as you get older, these things start happening, and you feel like more relaxed with your form.
But do you ever feel bored of your work? Or if that has not happened till now, have you ever thought about like passion dying and stuff like that? Because right now I've been thinking about that a lot. Like I like watching films, making films, writing about it, doing podcasts, but what if that dies? And have you ever thought about that idea in itself? Is that not scary?
um you get bored and then you stop kind of producing the work. uh it hasn't happened yet because the it's a vast world. It is a vast world to explore from. I don't have to kind of try out different art forms. I don't have to dance mohiniyattam or take up doing video or animation until now, because I was bored with comics. Because the world, so imagine that you are living in a town, say if you're living in Bhopal, and it just does not end. You've seen the old parts of Bhopal, you've seen the new parts of Bhopal, you've seen then suddenly one day you want to sort of look at Bhopal from the old merchants, old traders of Bhopal, right? Then one day you want to see like the sports culture of Bhopal. Then another day you want to see the talabs, the lake culture of Bhopal. One day you just want to like go and eat, and you just like spend it. And comics is so close to life because life is reflected in comics. Being bored with life and being bored with comics would be the same thing. So people who tend to get like bored with life, I've noticed, are people who lack imagination. I mean, sounds a bit harsh, but I think in lacking imagination um, like a lot of people like think that Delhi is a rough city and it has nothing to pose, it's like only government buildings and ruins and things like that. But Delhi has a fantastic subculture. You know, it is not easy to like Bombay is, because it's Bombay is much like easily likable. More optics are better, but Delhi has tremendous amount of subculture and tremendous amount of lifestyle things. What we call the word is ferment. It has a lot of ferment, and it is your imagination, your individual imagination, that opens up these worlds. So comics, I've never really been bored of comics, because when I get bored of say one aspect of the work, there is another aspect that appears. So, like for example, I might be bored with people, but then there's architectural spaces that I want to explore. And architecture might actually give me even a closer understanding of the human condition than human beings itself. I can talk about the trees, I can talk about the birds of Delhi, or I can talk about Ahmedabad. So how it's like being bored with life, and some people do get temporarily bored with life, but then there's no alternative to life, right? You can't like suspend it and then do something else and then come back to life. So comics a little bit for me like that. And I'm like old, I've been doing comics for like many years now, 20-25 years, and I've not been bored ever until now, because there's always something new comes up. Because you have to understand that if there's no learning, that's another thing. When people get bored, when you're not learning anything through your work, that you become a master of your work and there's nothing to learn. You're just trying to every time become yourself uh, in your work. You are in that, you want to maintain your standard. But the point is not about that. The point is about like opening up new worlds, taking new pathways, taking new routes to go to college, stuff like.
Like, do you think India is going to remain a safe space for art in the upcoming years?
Yeah, you see, this is a very interesting question that a lot of artists are facing right now, because they've been directly, some of them have been directly involved with this sort of current changing India, either as chroniclers or people who have been stopped from chronicling. It is not an easy space, and it is a space that constantly needs to be negotiated. Uh, there have been challenges for artists and it's not just artists, journalists, academics. You know, there is restrictions which we never imagined that would have happened. In like you guys are coming into this generation seeing these restrictions about like in our country, but these never really existed before. They were like, sure, they were like banning of Salman Rushdie's book, and there was Shahbanu's case, but now it is very quick. If you put up something, there's a very quick response to it, and there are demands, and there are first requests, and then there are demands that why did you put it up, and it is possible politely take it off because it is inciting people or it's whatever. It comes in different words and different thing, but yes, it is a restricted space for artists. I would not insult those artists who are facing those issues by saying that it does not exist. However, I feel like um, life is large, and we artists are powerful people. They have something which is very powerful, which is imagination. Uh, they have skills and imaginations to understand the present, to make it's we would understand the present differently than a sociologist or an economist, because the wires are I'm not glorifying an artist, but I'm saying like you're meant to like sort of think differently, and I'm hopeful that interesting forms are going to come out of this. Moscow conceptualism happened. It's a very interesting art phenomenon which happened during the time of Stalin, and it produced very interesting art. Then there are other movement that has happened in various parts of the world. So within this restriction, also, we don't necessarily have to always think of it as like as if we have been destroyed, but we can also think slowly about it as being an opportunity to come back in a different way. What is the worst thing about being an artist is becoming irrelevant. That is something that we need to talk about more, is irrelevance. So if there's, for example, a piece of sensitive news, if you ban it, or a sensitive book, if you ban it, you obviously raise interest in it, as all of you know. In one of my comic books, there's also like a little group of people whose job is to ban things only for 2 weeks, so that the book kind of develops enough interest, and then the ban is lifted, and then suddenly the sales of the book comes up. It's a bit like, I don't know, some of you might have used this word trigger warning. So you have like something really basic to say, or like something really boring and unimportant to say, but moment you put trigger warning in front of it, people are going to like look at things. So there's a so often banning and restriction are not really a way to silence art. It probably gives it more voice, right? But the worst fear for artists is irrelevance. When you take that sensitive piece of news or art and put it on page 12, that's when you've killed it. So, I mean, banning is really an inefficient way to kind of to silence something, but making it irrelevant. So my fear is not about like so much like restricted by banning or political, because I don't write that kind of political stuff. But definitely there's a fear of irrelevance, because I might not be fitting very well in this atmosphere of like very strongly etched out identities, very strong kind of political views. People are extremely like whatever sensitive to kind of the kind of literature that seems to do well is an ideal article right now is which has got a full article with micro call outs. You're just calling out either ideas, thoughts, food, restaurant, city, whatever. So just this little minor call out or minor comparison with this Madras is better than Bangalore kind of argument or stuff like that. Or you create like this sort of tension of identities, and that is a very or caste identities and things like that. And this is a great way to communicate in this current world, but I don't do that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, I want to, but I don't want to also. But which means that my point of view, which is basically about looking at the delicious waste of human life, the absolute mm, the repast of a human existence it might become irrelevant at some point of time. To understand our existential condition, to kind of get deeper into like our own minds and our own mental being, sometimes using mystery and magic, sometimes using uncanny, not being very directly attacking to anyone, but sort of insinuating that kind of deeper problem. All these things I feel might become less and less important. So there's more of a fear of irrelevance. than like being banned or stuff like that. For me personally, comics also is closer to poetry. If it is closer to any kind of literary form, it comes closest to poetry.